Hello, here is your daily dose. Today we're going to be doing Ice on TryHackMe. Now I have already completed this machine. I did a machine earlier and I was recording a video and I had not gone through it yet, and it turned out to be all steganography based, and I am not good with any of that. If you don't know, it's about hiding information in pictures, and that was not the type of thing that I was expecting. So I've already gone through this machine, I've completed all of it, so we should have smooth sailing here. I'm going to go ahead and skip task 1 because it's all about just getting connected to it. So we're going to go straight on to task 2 here. So go ahead and deploy your machine. Step 1 is just to launch a scan against the machine. I have already done that for time's sake, but for you, it gives you an example to run. The -SS is for a SYN scan. The -P- is to scan all ports. I went ahead and did this scan, excuse me, -T4, and then the IP address, and then I did -O and then an output file, which I just called ICE. So the -A in my scan is for aggressive. It's going to do everything. It's going to try to grab everything. It's going to run scripts against it. -P-, like I said, is for all ports. -T4 means timing. The timing goes to 5. All of 5 can start missing results, and 4 is faster than 3. I've had no problems with 4, which is why I use it. And then, like I said, I output the scan to a file. So I'm going to go ahead and cat out that file, and here are our scan results. So once the scan completes, we'll see a number of interesting ports open on the machine. Firewall is disabled for us, which is good. One of the more interesting ports that is open is MSRDP. What port is this on? So if we look at our scan, I don't see anything that specifically says RDP on it. So if I didn't know the answer to this, I would be going out, sorry, this is for a later question, I'd be going out and saying, what port is RDP? Click on our very first result here and see what we find. So if you search through here, server listens on TCP 3389. So let's go back to our scan. We do have 3389 open. And that is the answer to our question. What service did Nmap identify as running on port 8000? 8000, we have Icecast Streaming Media Server. It says use the first word, so our answer is Icecast. What does Nmap identify as the host name of the machine? All caps for the answer. So that's going to be in a script. So the name of this machine is darkpc, and that is our answer. So let's move on to task 3. Now that we've identified some interesting services on the target machine, we're going to do some research into one of the weirder services identified, Icecast. This version is heavily flawed and has a high vulnerability score. What type of vulnerability is it? Let's take a look here. I know it gives CVE details. If I was just doing this on my own without any hints, I would be going to, well, it doesn't give a version. It just says Icecast Media Streaming Server. So I would go here and go out to Google and just search exploit. As you can see, I've already been here. And there's one in red here that sticks out, and that is execute code overflow. And that is the answer. What is the CVE number for this vulnerability? Now this question, when I was going through this, I actually had a bit of a problem with, because there are quite a few vulnerabilities for this. Not even on this page. When I was going through, I dug up some other CVEs for this, and it took me a while. I was just pounding different CVEs with execute code overflow and a high rating, and eventually I found one. So you can go on that goose hunt if you want, or the wild goose chase, but this is the answer. This is the specific one that they're looking for. We found our vulnerability, so we're going to find our exploit next. For this section of the room, we'll use Metasploit. So we're going to go ahead and start Metasploit. So to do that, we're just going to go MSF console. It's going to take a moment to come up. Let's read on. After Metasploit is started, let's search for our target exploit using search icecast. What is the full path starting with exploit for the exploitation module? Alright, so Metasploit is up here. You probably will have a different picture up here. That doesn't matter, just looking for this command line. So we're going to go search icecast. And we only have one result, so it's nice and clear for us. It said starting with exploit, so I'm just going to copy this whole thing. And actually, I've already submitted it, but this is our answer. Alright, we're going to select that, so we can say use icecast or use 0. The reason why we can use 0 is because of this one right here. So if there were more exploits possible, you'd have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many it would be, and then you could select that one. So I'm just going to say use 0, and we are in it. Following selecting our module, we now have to check what options we have set. Use the command show options. What is the only required setting which is currently blank? So let's run show options. Everything else is filled except our hosts right here. So our answer is our hosts. We'll set that last option to our target IP. Alright, so here is the IP address. Yours is going to be different, likely. So we're just going to copy this. And we're going to say set our hosts, and we're going to paste that IP. So now, show your options again, and you should have that IP right there. So it wants us to run our exploit, and our next task is escalate, so that means we should have a shell on the machine before that. So our L host is already set here, but it's set to the wrong IP. I know that because if I run ifconfig, my IP address is this. It's not what it has set up here. It has it set to my internal IP address for my home network. So we want to set it to this ton 0. This is our TryHackMe. So I'm going to copy this, say set L host, R for remote, L for local. Set that. Options, we have it set. We're on port 4444, which for the purposes of a TryHackMe machine or a CTF machine, that's fine. In the real world, you probably would want something a little bit more stealthy, such as port 80 or 443. But for this, it's fine. So we're going to go ahead and run this exploit. If you want, you can type exploit here instead of run if you want to feel cool. Alright, so you can see we have our Meterpreter shell right here. So this is a remote shell on our victim machine. So our exploit worked. So we'll move on to task 4. So woohoo! We have gained a foothold into our victim machine. What is the name that we have? The name of the shell? We have a Meterpreter shell. A Meterpreter is the type of shell that is native to Metasploit. What user was running that icecast process? So we hacked into the icecast process. That was the vulnerable software. So when we hacked into it, we should have the same level of privileges as whatever user was running that software. So that means that this shell right here is running that same user. So to show the user that we're using, we can run get_uid, and we are darkpc/dark. So we are the dark user right now. And dark is our answer. What build of Windows is the system? So we can use sysinfo here, and we have 6.1 build 7601. So our build is 7601, and there it is. Alright, so what is the architecture of the process that we are running? Well, if we just go back to this page, architecture is 64-bit, so x64. And there's our answer. Now that we know the architecture of the process, let's perform some further recon. While this doesn't work best on 64-bit machines, let's run the following command. This can appear to hang as it tests exploits and might take several minutes to complete. Alright, so this is a post script in Metasploit. So what this does is it's going to run a script on our shell. So this is something that this is why Meterpreter shells are powerful, and I dare even say preferred in the industry, because we can do we have built-in functionality that we don't have in, say, a Netcat shell. So we can run this script on our shell here. Now it also said that it might appear to hang. If you don't know what hanging is, it's when you run a program and it doesn't succeed, but it doesn't explicitly fail. Like, it doesn't output an error message, it just does nothing. So you didn't fail, but you didn't succeed, you're just hanging there. So let's see how long this takes. Alright, so we're showing that this exploit Windows local bypass UAC event viewer exploit, it appears to be vulnerable to it. It also is showing some others that it might be vulnerable to. Let's see what our next question is. Running the local exploit suggests to return quite a few results or potential escalation points. What is the full path starting with the exploit for the first return exploit? Well, I just read that off. Is this one right here. That's going to be the first one. Now that we have an exploit in mind for elevating our privileges, let's background our current session using Control-Z or background. Take note of what session number we had. This will likely be 1 in this case. We can list all of our active sessions using the command sessions. Alright, so it wants us just to background it. So I'm just going to press Control-Z and Y. So if we go sessions, you can see we have that Meterpreter session still open. If I wanted to go back into it, I just do sessions-I for interact, to interact with the shell, and then the session number. Now we're back. So I'm just going to go back again. Go ahead and select your previously found local exploit and use the command use that exploit. Alright, so I'm just going to go copy this path. And use this exploit. So right here it says that we don't have a payload configured. It's using Windows Meterpreter reverse TCP. That's fine. It is a Windows machine, and we do want this reverse TCP. So that's no issue right now. Local exploits require a session to be selected. Set this now using the command set session number. So if we go to show options, we do have a blank session variable right here. So remember, our session number was 1. So we're going to say set session to 1. Now that we've set our session number, further options will be revealed in the options menu. We'll have to set one more as our listener IP isn't correct. What is the name of this option? Well, our listener is going to be local. Remember I said that our local host is going to be receiving from the victim machine. So that is our lhost option. And if you want to confirm that, we'll have options right here. Here is our lhost. It auto-populated with my NAT address for my home network. So we'll have to set that option now. It says to use this IP ADDR. I'm just going to copy it from here. It's always, or not always, but for me it's always this ton0. So I'm going to set the L host to the correct IP address. And it's saying now we can run our exploit. It also says this might take a few attempts and you may need to relaunch the box and exploit the service. Let's hopefully not have to do that. So, like I said, if you want to feel cool, you can run exploit instead of run. Hopefully we should get an elevated shell back. And there we go. So if we say get UID, we are still dark. Let's just keep going. We can now verify that we have expanded permissions using the getPrivs command. What privilege listed allows us to take ownership of files? So let's just run getPrivs. So it is this take ownership privilege. It's hidden in here somewhere. Here it is. Take ownership. That you could just run this getPrivs, and even if you have no idea what any of these do, it says take ownership, so the take ownership one is a pretty good guess. Alright, on to task 5, looting. So we need to move the process to, we need to move to a process that has permissions that we need to interact with the LSASS service. This service is responsible for the authentication within Windows. First, let's list the processes with PS. Note we can see the process being run by authority system as we have escalated permissions, even though our process doesn't. Alright, so let's run PS. So you can see all of the processes that are authority system, which, if you don't know, that is the root level user for Windows. So that is what we're after. Right now we are just this dark user with elevated privileges, but we want to be the actual root user. In order to interact with LSASS, or LSASS, we need to be living in a process that is the same architecture as that service, 64-bit in the case of this machine, and a process that has the same permissions as LSASS. The printer service happens to meet our needs perfectly for this, and it'll restart if we crash it. What's the name of the printer service? So that is this spoolsv.exe. That's just something, if you're familiar with networking, if you're familiar with Windows processes, that is just the name of that service. Migrate to this process now with migrate-n and then the process name. Alright, so it says the process name, where'd it go? There it is. So we are going to go migrate-n and then our process name. Alright, it completed successfully, so let's move on. Let's check what user we are now with getUID. So we are authority system. Now that we've made our way into full administrative permissions, we'll set our sights on looting. Mimikatz is a rather infamous password dumping tool that is incredibly useful. Load it with load kiwi. So this is another thing that you can do within Meterpreter. Kiwi or Mimikatz are extensions or plugins that go into Meterpreter. They're not there if you just are running a regular netcat shell. Loading Kiwi into our Meterpreter session will expand our help menu. Let's take a look at the newly added section by running help. So if we run help, we get a long list of commands. which command allows you to retrieve all credentials? It is this creds all. If you read through this, I will point them all out to you, but I'm not going to just search through all of them. You can read through all of the help options if you want. They're all right here, but here's that creds all. Run this command now and find what Dark's password is. Okay, so let's go creds all. And we have, for Dark, we have password 01 exclamation mark. Interestingly enough, this took my answer without the exclamation mark. It should be in there. Let's move on to post-exploitation. Before we start, let's revisit the help menu. Well, the help menu is still right here. What commands allows us to dump all of the password hashes stored on the system? That is a very common one. If you get onto a system and you can run hash dump, I'd recommend that you do it. That will dump, as you can see, it dumps the contents of the SAM database. So you can get user credentials from there, except you're going to get the password hash, so you're going to have to crack that hash to get the clear text password, such as password 1. While more useful than interacting with the machine, what command allows us to watch the remote desktop's user's desktop in real time? If you scroll through this, you will find the answers to these questions. If you want a spoiler, I guess you caught it. Here are the answers, but it just wants you to read through and find the correct ones from here. Your answers are going to be something in the command section on each of these. Alright, so this is just saying we can use this to enable remote desktop protocol. So right now we're on this machine, we have full control of this machine, but it doesn't look like this, right? We don't have an actual desktop environment. So if we run that post script that it's saying, this will enable RDP on the machine if it's not already enabled, or at least it's going to attempt to do that. It is already enabled. If you remember from our scan, we have this port 339 open, or 3389, excuse me. If this was closed, this would not show up, and if we ran that post script and then we scanned it again, this should show back up, assuming that we were successful. But that is it. There's not much on the extra credit right here. Just read this. Maybe we'll move on to Blaster next. But for now, thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time.